Good morning, everyone. It's Monday, June 15th. From the Express News, my name is Luis Vasquez, and this is your Express Briefing. All of the stories you need to know to start your day. You can expect mostly sunny skies and a high of 91. Police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis and ensuing protests over his death have forced a broad reckoning over the role of police in San Antonio, raising new questions about the city's spending on police, officers' use of force, and the chief's ability to keep bad officers off the streets. Join the Express News editorial board this morning at 10 a.m. as they interview District Attorney Joe Gonzalez about criminal justice and police reform. You can watch it live on expressnews.com or watch it live on Facebook. Also, on expressnews.com today, look out for a story about how massage parlors, spas, and rehab facilities are getting back to work in such hands-on industries. And now, the top headlines for the day. Ever since the pandemic hit San Antonio in March, the overnight team at Northeast Baptist Hospital has done its best to help the sickest coronavirus patients make it to morning. From 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., they see patient after patient stricken by the same terrible and perplexing disease. Constricted by the same limited options for treatment, with doctors available by phone but not present, they rely more on each other. They are the lifeline for worried family members, and when a patient is dying, they're the only ones allowed in the room. For nurses, the night shift is a long stretch of quiet punctuated by crisis. Reporter Lauren Karuba and photographer Bob Owen spent 2 nights alongside them. You can also check out my interview with Bob and Laura for the In-Depth podcast where we took an inside look on their story at the link in the description. As the coronavirus began to spread across Texas, state and local leaders in March stalled most eviction proceedings so families wouldn't end up on the streets among a global pandemic and stay-at-home orders. But the respite is over, with San Antonio's first eviction cases scheduled to be heard at 9 a.m. today in the Justice of the Peace Court, whose jurisdiction covers part of downtown and the west side. The lack of a sharp rise in cases could be a sign that the legal protections and government programs enacted to protect families are working, but it might be too soon to tell. Marina Starley-Freiker explored the aid available and talked to one renter who fell through the cracks. The Federal Depression-era New Deal initiative, which gave San Antonio its Riverwalk, Mission San Jose National Park, and other cherished icons, could be a template for rebuilding a San Antonio economy devastated by COVID-19. As city and county leaders plot a course for spending an initial $115 million in combined federal funds by December 30th, Bexar County Commissioner Tommy Calvert has been talking up a vision for a long-term stimulus plan on the scale of the Works Progress administration. Scott Huddleston explains where Calvert would spend the money and why he said the healthcare side is the new B-1 bomber. In San Antonio, where the annual Martin Luther King Jr. Day March draws one of the biggest crowds in the country, various groups have stepped up to organize marches and push for change. For some of those leaders, their activism about police misconduct and racial bias arises from years of feeling that their voices and their very lives didn't matter. Each group and each leader have varying views about what needs to change and how, but they all agree that something must be done, and soon. Emily Eaton and Sylvia Foster Frau have their stories. Next up are your need-to-know headlines. You can find all of these headlines and more in your Express News subscription. The SA Food Bank is racking up tens of thousands of dollars in extra costs because contractors with the federal government's new food relief program are delivering food boxes to the nonprofit's warehouse instead of to distribution sites. Former prosecutor, judge, and FBI director William Sessions has passed away at the age of 90. He was known for his unwavering commitment to fairness, the rule of law, and seeking to bring greater racial and gender inclusion to the FBI. As Austin and Tulsa, Oklahoma compete for Tesla's next Gigafactory, San Antonio's business leaders hope to gain from the potential move. A feared second wave of San Antonio coronavirus infections is picking up, with more than 1,000 new cases since last Saturday, and new cases above 100 several days in a row. Under a $4 million agreement, University Health System will process COVID-19 tests for patients across Texas. The foundation of one of San Antonio's first African American churches, discovered in February along San Pedro Creek, soon could be added to the National Register of Historic Places. Port San Antonio, the job incubator on the site of the former Kelly Air Force Base, has held its own through the COVID-19 economic downturn. Post-pandemic, it's poised to take off, writes Greg Jefferson. With the addition of plastic glass shields, dozens of hand sanitizer dispensers, and a requirement to wear a mask, Bexar County courtrooms are ready for reopening. The Express News editorial board writes, Juneteenth 2020 finds us in a historic moment when there appears to be the will, energy, and moral urgency to complete an unfinished emancipation by reckoning with our nation's past to correct injustices. The Bexar County Medical Society president, Dr. Gerald Q. Greenfield Jr., writes, when some say that wearing a mask is somehow an infringement on personal freedom, the question of, are we really all in this together, suddenly takes on a different tone and leads to the question of whose freedom is being limited. Balancing concerns about a second wave of the coronavirus and guidelines for social distancing against tight classrooms designed for efficiency, Northside ISD is preparing to reopen schools this fall for more than 105,000 students without knowing how many will show up and how many will continue the option of remote learning from home. This Week in History is commemorated by the expressnews.com/covers. On June 20th, 1979, in a Juneteenth celebration at the Alamo, State Rep. Lou Nell Sutton honored John, a black man who died during the siege of the Alamo. I want history to give John a last name, and the way for the United States to give John a last name is to do away with any Jim Crow practices, whether they're aimed at blacks, whites, reds, browns, or any other color. You can find that cover at expressnews.com/covers. Also this week in history, on June 16, 2014, Express News Spurs writer Jeff McDonald wrote, as the final seconds bled away on a 104-87 Game 5 demolition of the Miami Heat that clinched the most dominating NBA Finals in league history, as the moment of catharsis was at hand for the Spurs. You can find that excellent cover again at expressnews.com/covers. Since the novel coronavirus pandemic began, Lisbeth Ann Dunlap has uplifted her neighborhood by posting anonymous jokes at the area elementary school, placing painted rocks throughout the subdivision, and setting up puzzle challenges in her front yard. Vincent T. Davis talked to her about the source of her enthusiasm for life and her weekly routine of good deeds. And now, the fun stuff. If and when the NBA does resume play in Central Florida, the absence of the Spurs' second leading scorer could have a profound effect on their chances of earning a playoff berth for an NBA record 23 consecutive seasons. Chuck Blunt continues 52 weeks of pizza by visiting Back Unturned Brewing Co., a hidden downtown San Antonio pizza gem. Did you harvest too many herbs? Paul Stevens will show you how to store them to extend their lives. A group of Texas football players will be allowed to return to the field Monday for voluntary workouts. Meanwhile, UT student athletes are calling for changes to their Austin campus. The Express News reached out to media relations directors, athletic directors, and coaches to compile a list of student athletes who are being recognized as the valedictorians and salutatorians of their classes. David Hinojosa has that story. Performing Arts San Antonio will stream Wicket and She Kills Monsters while closed over coronavirus concerns. This was your Express Briefing. My name is Luis Vasquez. Consider becoming an Express News subscriber to get in-depth coverage of all the stories you heard today. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast in your Apple Podcast app. It will really help the show. Also, check out other Express News podcasts like Puro Politics and In Depth. Have a wonderful day.